So here we are. I'm in Sheffield today. I'm like roving around the world. You know, Krakow in one day, Sheffield the next day, and I'm talking here with Jon Barton, who in a way is my my boss. Are you my boss?
I thought you were going to say hero.
Hero boss. So how would you, if when you're going through customs in America, what do you say your job is? Publisher, yeah.
And then they think I'm sort of in newspapers and a journalist.
Yeah.
I was like book publisher. And then you just get that same, wherever you say it, you just get that thing, oh, do people still read books? All the time. It's like, do people still read books? Did not Kindle. It must be really tough. That's what we get. I'm grinning at you like I'm on the telly.
People feel sorry.
Yeah.
Remember that Bill Hicks thing where he's in a Waffle House and he's like reading a book and the waitress comes up and she goes like, what are you reading for? And he goes, so I don't work in a Waffle House.
Yeah. I'm not that clever. I just say, oh no, books of the future.
Is it like when you're writing if you're in a cafe and you're writing, someone always goes up and says, who do you know that J.K. Rowling wrote all their books in a cafe? Yeah. Like I do, because everyone tells me every time I sit down and write in a cafe. So
yes.
But the thing is, I think it's kind of a risky business to be in publishing.
It's more fun than graphic design, which is where I started my career.
Yeah.
Graphic. So I sort of fell into having a graphic design business, and it's pretty awful because I'm not a very good salesperson, and I don't recognise people. I have a weird eyesight problem, and I find it really hard to recognise people. So obviously in sales, you've got to be very gregarious and you've got to be very confident. And you've got to be able to recognise people. And of course, I'd be in a sales meeting, and it tended to be with people in the outdoor trade. And then I'd see somebody at the crag, and they'd go, "Oh, how's it going, John?" And I'd like blank them and ignore them, and come over as sort of arrogant and aloof and all this sort of thing. And then later on, I'd realise, oh, that was a person I was pitching to 2 days earlier, and I wouldn't get the work. So we always got told what to do as a graphic design company, because if somebody climbed better than me, then they would clearly be a better designer than me as well. So you always get told by your clients how to do their brochures and put, all the rest of it. And it got to a point I found that pretty soul destroying. So, but because we had graphic designers, we had capacity to print stuff. So we ended up doing a book, because I went out and wrote a book. So we ended up publishing this book, and we just got to do what we wanted. And it was just so much more fun producing the book than selling something I was proud of. And then the book sold loads. So we just generally... Is
this November?
No, November was just like a weird thing before we even got really started in the graphic design. The book was just a dark peak mountain biking, or peak district mountain bike. So it was just a mountain bike guide.
Yeah.
And everybody loved it, and we sold like tens of thousands of copies, and we carried on selling loads. So it was just more satisfying, because I think the problem with the graphic design, I've said this before, we made a lot of our money out of persuading people to produce more stuff. So it was like, we designed their letterhead or their logo, and then we'd print them some letterheads. And of course, the more letterheads they printed, the more markup we made on the print.
Yeah.
So you were just in a business about putting more stuff in the world. And it got to a stage where...
And plastic bags with
a logo on, and bloody plastic pens, you could... Oh, I'll have 2,000 plastic pens. Nobody needs 2,000 or 5,000 plastic pens. So I ended up just doing loads of stuff in the world. And I was a bit uncomfortable with it, but you had to do it to make money. So I stopped doing it, and I published books. And the financials aren't very startling in publishing. It's not something that people invest in. We actually got some investment a year ago, and so the investor said, okay, well, when we signed the contracts and everything, the money transferred over, and we had this business plan ready to develop. And he was like, right, we must do a press release about this amazing thing. So I just wrote this press release saying Sheffield publisher gets loads of money. And he was like, well, that's just rubbish, isn't it? Who's going to publish that? he says you should be linking it like to the Waterstone story, and you should be linking it to the trends in publishing and all the rest of it, and all all this kind of stuff. I said, no, this is big news in publishing. Nobody ever invests in a publishing business. And he just went really quiet down the phone because he thought it was like a sexy business he was investing in. But yeah, no, it is, to answer the question, it is, it's not the sort of business you get into to make money, not, to make proper amounts of money. It's a little bit of a lifestyle business, and you've got to be passionate about it. It's not a sort of business that generates vast quantities of cash.
Is it? I guess you're playing like a long game. Like I remember, like Ken Wilson, the famous Ken Wilson, who was probably Britain's best. Was he? What do you call him? He was like a great editor and a
great publisher.
Yeah, like a real dynamic force in publishing. And I remember, like when he used to ring him up, someone gave me his telephone number, and you'd ring him up, and he'd just go, "What?" When he answered the phone, and he'd be like, "Oh, hi," and he was just like terrifying character. But he was very, I guess he didn't spend any time dilly-dallying. He would get straight to the point. But I remember him telling me about, if you write something, it's going to be there forever. You can't get it back once it's printed. So it's not like a website you can go and change it. But so that was something I really thought about for a long time. Like, make it as good as you can and maybe a little bit better. But he also said about it's like a long game. Like, you've got these books, you might have them you might print 4,000 books. It might take you 15 years to sell them all. Where I think nowadays with the big publishers, they print 1 million books by Jordan, and they want them all sold by the end of January, don't they? Then they just pulp them all. Or
I mean, the interesting thing in distribution for publishers is they typically work on a 12-month cycle. So a warehouse will store your books for a year, and then if they haven't sold, they'll start charging you quite hefty storage charges.
Yeah.
Which is basically to persuade you to chuck your books away and put in a new bestseller.
Yeah.
And I think we tend to work on a longer cycle than that. We just negotiated our way out of those storage charges. And I think one thing we've tried to do is we have tried to just produce fewer, better books that people want to read and share and give to other people, and hopefully not give too many away, rather than just producing bestsellers that you're going to read and then chuck in the recycling.
Yeah, I guess I should point out that in the global outdoor publishing, you're one of the three biggest. Or there's Mountaineers, there's you, there's AS, is it Varlug in Germany? Like, all the others are quite, like, the amount of books you're publishing is pretty impressive. The amount of awards you're winning as well, like Banff and Bob Tasker and things. Like, you're kind of punching above your weight, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're operating in a fairly small niche. And we have good authors, good contacts, and we just have a really good production team.
Yeah.
And we just put a lot of effort in, and I think that buys you a little bit of access to awards and things. So
you're like boutique.
So I'd like to think we do tend to win one of the big mountaineering awards every year. Touch wood. But I think we've reached the position now that our entries at least get read.
Yeah.
And when 30, 40, 50 books are getting submitted to an award, you can't expect the judges are really going to have to consider every one. So I think we've carved out a bit of a name for ourselves. So it keeps us. But we've got some good books.
Yeah.
And I think we're trying to support. Mountaineering has a long tradition of publishing, and I think publishing really strong books. Not that many of them break out of the niche.
Yeah.
But I think things like the Boardman Tasker Award has got to be careful that it stays as a mountaineering award. It advertises itself as a book about mountain, but I think it needs to sort of clarify itself a bit more going forward. And my personal opinion, it needs to be a mountaineering book award, because I think if it broadens itself out too much, it'll lose some of its. If you think of some of the books that's won Boardman Tasker, like Savage Arena. Didn't win, obviously.
Yeah.
But Touching the Void,
Yeah.
Painted Mountain, Psychovertical, Cold Wars, your two books, Deep Play, Paul Pritchard's book. You know, these have really, they've just been really core books. You know, from first-time authors, just been, you know, amazing books. And I think if it sort of broadens out too much, it'll lose some of that. And I think the genre can get, you know, it needs its own award. There's loads of travel awards, and there's loads of those sort of awards. There's hundreds of them, and I think the Boardman, you know.
Do you think it needs to be like quite edgy?
Yeah. Like
climbing literature, it needs to, because it does seem to me like climbing has become kind of a lot more like sort of conformist in a way. Like I think some of the characters, you know, like Nick Bullock and people like that, they are kind of edgy kind of characters.
Yeah.
And they're kind of spiky characters. You don't want to be having too many, you know, literary kind of darlings writing these books.
I think absolutely. I think that's exactly like
almost like McFarlane, people like that. I often feel like they're great writers, but they're almost like a tourist. They come into some area and then they'll just write this amazing book about it, but then they don't really, you know, like, you know, they have one day out on the hill and then they'll write a whole book about this one experience where maybe the more difficult kind of books, you know, I guess again like Nick's or like Mick Fowler's, they're much more like a grassroots kind of view of mountaineering. They're not all flowery and full of poetry and things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it, and I think you know, I'm a big fan of the Boardman Tasker Award, but I think it's interesting. The last two winners, you know, the publishers haven't bothered updating their title information to say the book's won the Boardman Tasker Award.
Yeah.
Even the Boardman Tasker website's not bothered putting it on the winners.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I think it, you know, for things like, you know, Beyond the Mountain or, you know, some of those winners, you know, in Cold Wars, you know, and Ron Fawcett's book, it was just such a big thing to win that award.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, we've got to keep that sort of publishing edgy.
Because I guess you're also like creating, like, the mountaineering culture is about films, it's about, you know, like YouTube videos, it's about books, it's about all these elements. Like mountaineering itself or climbing itself is a very personal thing, and I think it'd be very easy just to have, you know, you see more and more guidebooks with no history in them. It's just a purely athletic, that's the line, go there. If you go to other places, like, you know, when you go to a Rapley's, you look at the current, like a Rapley's guidebook, it's just, you know, this book that's so full of love for the crag and the history, and it really, you know, it makes a great crag, like absolutely amazing crag, where you go to other places and you just have this very, you know, there's no real knowledge of the place. Like at North Face of the Eiger, you didn't have the White Spider and all this film and literature about it. It would just be a big chossy crag, really. It wouldn't be anything to it. So I think that's interesting. Like, I know when like Random House stopped doing sort of mountaineering literature, if you hadn't been around to sort of take up that, you know, where they left off, you wonder what would it have just all died on the vine? Because in that period, where people were trying to get books published and Random House weren't doing it anymore, and it seemed like you appeared just at the right time, really.
Yeah, I think we started off and we did some guidebooks, and then John Cofield joined us, and I sort of sat down with John and said, what I want to do is mountain literature. I want to produce. Sound like a bit like a knob now, but I wanted to produce the kind of books I'd read when I was growing up. That, you know, as soon as I went climbing, and I thought, like, this is for me. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to go climbing, and then I just devoured whatever media I could get, which was climbing books. You know, the Boardman Tasker books, Savage Arena and Shining Mountain, and the Hard Years and all that kind of stuff. And I said to John, I said, like, you know, this is what I want to do, you know, and I want to get the company good enough to be worthy of producing these things. And it's like what, you know, and I was very aware of what Ken Wilson had said about. Once you've written, it's done. You can't drag it back.
Yeah.
It's going to be there forever, and so. But also, I wanted to produce sort of the books of the climbing I was doing. So that's why the first one we did was Jerry Moffat's book, and that was a gift really, because Jerry just had those anecdotes and he could spew them out, and and he worked with Niall Grimes, who was just an awesome writer, and we just got that combination, and I think that was very good, because it just gave us the confidence, because it was such a successful book and it was so well done, and I was so excited about it that it just gave us the confidence just to do loads and loads of books like that.
It's interesting because in a way you're getting down all the stuff in the cracks of like history, like by getting people to write these books. Like I've been trying to interview my uncle, who was one of the first sort of salvage divers from, like, he lives in Hull, and I keep missing him. And I kind of know that, like, if he was to just disappear tomorrow, all this information he had about diving on World War II submarines and all this kind of stuff, it would all just disappear. He's never written it down. So like getting like Ron and Jerry and everybody to write these books, like they're there forever really. People can go back and like read them. It's
quite amusing. I've got a friend who's deputy editor at the Sunday Times, and he's had a lifelong career in journalism and generating stories and all the rest of it. And he often comments on some of our books and some of the stuff we do. And he said, we're just so close to the stories, we don't realise how big the stories are.
Yeah.
And he's very clear that there's a lot of personalities out there. Bear Grylls would be one of your favourites, who really do suck up the oxygen. There's sort of people have got only so much. They can only listen to so much stuff about outdoor adventure, and there's some big personalities out there who are sucking up all that oxygen and all that attention, and then, but we're so close to the climbing, the story, we don't realise how big those stories are, and it's only looking at how successful Jerry's book's been, Revelations, and the books that we did following on from that, which was like Ron's book and Andy Pollitt's book, that period in history was incredible. It went from people in Bumbleys in their tweed breeches, having a laugh at the crag and climbing E1, just became that amazing sport that hasn't sort of moved on again. It was a revolution in sport, and you still don't realise how significant it was.
I guess it becomes normalised. Like if you're living in Chamonix, or you're living in Sheffield, or you're living in Boulder, Colorado, it becomes that it just becomes a normal thing. You don't realise like what, like it's, when we both had like, did we both like sit and have a drink with Catherine Destavel once or something? But like Catherine Destavel, you're sitting with this woman who must be, she's like 60 or something. She's well, anyway. She's getting she's a more mature woman. But then you think like no one has ever really bested Catherine Destavel in 30 years. Like what she achieved in her time, in all these different disciplines, and high altitude, big walls, soloing, and but you kind of, if it was anyone else, it'd be like meeting one of the, like Pele or some incredible athlete, but you're just in this bar having a drink with this woman. It becomes maybe in the future people look back and it'd be like meeting like an astronaut or somebody. But we're very lucky in that the sport is so the different, like you can go to a slideshow or whatever and you could be talking directly to Reinhold Messner or Conrad Anker or, Alex Honnold, you can see him at the crag. So there isn't this kind of distance that if you're a footballer, if you're into football, the chances of being in a bar and Eric Cantona's there or whatever, they're kind of quite small. But in climbing, you can go to any crag and you can see Adam Ondra. I think the only time we ever got a selfie with a famous climber was when I saw Adam Ondra and I had to pretend it was for my girlfriend. I was like, I just need to get a photograph. And you do kind of get this starstruck, but at the same time, like sometimes they're too human. These famous people when you meet them, they're kind of a down at heel. But
I was in a cafe with the family and 2 or 3 other families on holiday, and my phone goes, and obviously my wife gives me a bit of a dirty look because it looks like I'm taking a work phone call, which is exactly what I was doing. So I got up from the table, had a 10-minute chat, sat down, and my wife was like, "Who was that?" I said, "Oh, it was Chris Bonington." And she said, "What does he want?" But then we noticed on the table there was the other 3 families were just like, "What?"
Yeah.
Chris Bonington's literally just phoned you up, Chris Bonington.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
Because I went to the HMY Hay Book Festival, and Chris Bonington gave a talk there. So I went there with my wife and saw this talk. It was really amazing. Like, Chris Bonington is so good at crying, so good at, he's also good at almost crying, and everyone's like, but it doesn't make people feel uncomfortable when he does it. So like afterwards, like I just sent him an email. I was like, "Hi," I just found his email somewhere. I was like, "Hi, Chris. Just wanted to say, like, I thought it was really great and how it was different to all the other times I've seen him talk." And he just maybe I'm like a mini celebrity, but he just replied straight back. But he just replied just like a climber would, and he's like, "Oh, that's nice," and listen to this or whatever. And there isn't that real separation where if you met like Kim Kardashian, and you tried to send her a message and said, "Oh, I'm a C celebrity," I'm
starting out my fashion business.
Yeah, so I think we're kind of very lucky because the people, in some aspects of their life, they are really kind of extraordinary human beings. Like what they've done, really. I think that's, but maybe it's the more human ones where you like Tony Howard or these the people you meet. There's very little room for pretentiousness and being there's a few but not too many. But so I guess the first time I ever read anything that you were involved in was The Thing.
Yeah.
So if anyone, I doubt anyone's ever seen it, but The Thing was like a tiny like A5 just for Sheffield climbing like little fanzine thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you see, what's interesting about The Thing, it was very funny if you lived in Sheffield. It probably won't make any sense if you lived in anywhere else in the world.
No, I think it was
very Sheffield focused. But it reminded me of, if you read the old like Crags magazines, they just took the piss out of people all the time. Like no one could have, they always take the piss out of Chris Bonington or Ron Fawcett. They were very they'd just be done for libel these days. Yeah. But they had no respect for anybody. That was, I guess, where nowadays you don't have that. You have a much more of a respectful, like journalistic kind of thing. Do you think that's true? Although there aren't many magazines left anymore, is there? So.
Yeah, I mean, we have to, when we're doing a book, we have to read it and like take stuff out that we think is a bit edgy and all the rest of it. But when we did The Thing, we just didn't give a. Yeah. We didn't have any money.
It wasn't worth suing you.
It wasn't worth suing. We didn't have any money, and we were just and everybody. I think I got punched once, but everybody,
you were horrible to everybody. So.
Yeah, we were just horrible to each other and to everybody, and the printing quality was just appalling, and the jokes were really bad, and the whole thing was just a joke, and it was so amateurish. We sort of did issue 1 and issue 2, issue 3, and then we all went away climbing for a year, and then so we just plain old missed issue 4, I think. Yeah. And then then issue 4 became this mad collector's item, but it never it literally, I don't know which issue it was, but it literally never existed. Yeah. And then
it's like issue 0 of Alpinist. Is that, like everyone wants one, but
yeah. So but yeah, there was just so much. It was just easy to take the piss out of people, so we just did.
Yeah. Because I think that you think that climbing is really a really good sport to have these kind of fanzines, like punk fanzines or football fanzines, because there's so much. It's I don't know. We seem to have like all those magazines like On the Edge and these kind of things. Even I used to work for High magazine. I wouldn't say that was at the same. That was very different. The magazines are very different, weren't they? But On the Edge was really an interesting magazine. It had some really good stuff in there. They only paid, I think you used to get stamp money if you got something printed in there.
Yeah.
But you look back at it now, it created a lot of interesting like writing, and like Paul Pritchard and all these people sort of started there. Where now I can't remember the last time I saw like a magazine in the UK. I think Climbing or Climb, or one of those ones.
I'm sure there is one.
Yeah, there's one somewhere.
UKC now. It was we just did the thing, and then I wrote the peak climbing notes, peak scene for On the Edge, and I carried the humour through and the piss taking through.
Yeah.
To peak scene, and that's when I started getting into trouble.
Yeah.
Because people just thought I was being arrogant, but I was just taking the piss.
Yeah, yeah.
And and I didn't even know it. And there was like, I think it was like the hard grit was, so there was a lot of young kids who were climbing quite well, and they were like putting up routes and claiming grades for them, and I was just like jokingly downgrading. And like, I think there was one route, and some E6 or E7, but it'd been done in the summer, so I just claimed it'd be hard VS come the winter, and everybody took it seriously. Yeah.
I probably came to head. Remember when Richie Patterson gave the first ascent of oh God, not Beaugest.
The slab, knocking on heaven's door.
No, the other one. No, the Johnny does.
Oh,
Parthian shot, and he gave like Seb Grieve like the first ascent or something.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the final shot of those days really. After everyone became a lot more sensible, because I think there's a lot more. I think now we have a lot more advertising. So if you can't really upset any sponsored athlete who the advertiser is putting adverts in the magazine and things, it's very it's a weird thing really. Maybe that's what's a good thing about podcasts. You can say what you want.
Say what you want.
So then you did November, which was that sort of like a first ever climbing comic type thing. Yeah. Graphic novel we call it now. Graphic novel. Yeah. And what? So there's no way you can get these things. Are just like in the ether somewhere. You can't. I
think if you can get hold of a copy in November, we don't have any left. November is very good.
Yeah.
If you can find one. I'm sure.
It's a shame you can do like a PDF or some kind of Kindle-y thing, isn't it?
We sort of had the artwork, and we had some copies left, and I nearly did reprint it or do something, but I thought, what's the point?
But it was very unusual, wasn't it? It was a very it was almost like, it reminded me of what's that thing with Whistle Down? No, When the Wind Blows or something.
Yeah, it was totally.
It was kind of quite dark sort of comic thing.
Yeah.
But there's always something cool when someone does something which is almost completely uncommercial, like it's like a lost leader, or there's you're not just coming in there with 20 ways to get better at bouldering. You're doing like, instead of doing that, you're doing this book, like a graphic novel about it's kind of why spend all that time and effort just for the love of it.
Yeah,
and I think that's always kind of nice to see that kind of thing. But
we won the I don't even know what it was. I think it was some mountain festival over in Wales, and Jim Perrin had organised it. We won the Mountain Literature Award.
All right.
This thing, and we had to trek over, and it was like, and then we got there, and it was like, oh yeah, sorry, there's no money or prize, but you have won. So I think that was the first prize we won.
It's interesting how people. You do things and you just go out into the ether and you just forget about them, and then you never really, you don't know what impact it has. I remember Simon Pantin in North Wales, who writes the guidebooks there. He had this thing called Northern Soul, which was literally a load of like photocopied sheets of paper. And not long ago I met someone who said, "Oh, you had this thing in Northern Soul," and it was like one of the best things I'd ever read. It was something that later went into Psychovertical. And I was just like, first of all, I can't remember what he was talking about. I was like, Northern Soul, like, what the hell's that? And he was like, oh, that thing, it was like loads of sheets of paper. So people can just pick these things up and they take them away, and they can have like an impact on people, like totally out of proportion to the, the quality of the thing itself. So, but I guess like for me, so I always think about Vertebrate as that they're the beginnings of it. These kind of quirky, uncommercial kind of strange things, and I do feel that kind of bleeds a little bit into all the things you do, because there's always a very like graphic, because you do see a lot of publishers and they're always just getting by, they're just doing the least amount of possible. It's just not worth putting that amount of effort into something because the margins are so tiny in books, and just bang it out and it'll be okay. Do you know when you write a book, you're so you spend so much time doing it, and then you get someone who takes the design as like, they just think, oh, we're just going to put, we haven't got room to put this picture here, we're just going to get rid of it, and you're like, no, but that is part of it. And I always feel like you, Vertebrate, go the extra mile on all the books. Like every book is like the last book in a way.
It's quite. So when you start a book, when you're working with an author, I'll tend to say, I'll tend to sort of say, what do you, when the book's published, what do you want out of it? What's going to make you happy? And they'll sort of say, I just want to share my story. I just want to give advice. I just want to see, I just want to give something back, or something. Or they'll say something like, I would like to see a lot of photos in it, like, and all this kind of stuff. So you try and take that on board and you do it. And then, of course, a year after it's published, it's like, where are my royalties? How come it's not sold more? And it's like, you have to remind them about, well, I thought you were just trying to give something back. But yeah, we sometimes start a book thinking, right, well, it's probably not going to make us any money or the rest of it, and we'll just try and rush it out. But you just get sucked into the book, and you get sucked into the photos and the design, and you try and, it's quite interesting. One of my favourite books was Andy Pollock's Punk in the Gym, and it came to us. I knew Andy. I climbed with him out in Australia, and obviously he was just an utter rock god to me. And it came as handwritten chapters, just these handwritten stream of consciousness chapters, and I kind of loved them. And our idea was just literally to publish them like that,
right?
Just to make this book exactly like Andy was sending, almost photocopy these handwritten chapters and put them into a book, and that would be the book. And we'd print 250 copies, and it would that's what it would be. And for some reason, it just ended up being the most expensive book we've ever produced. It's got more colour photos in. It's got more printing treatments. It's got illustrations in. We sourced every photo we could possibly get. All the chapters that came over went in. It went through 3 editors.
It's a beautiful book.
Yeah, and it turned into a beautiful book, and Andy was really proud of it, and that's good. And then obviously Andy's gone now, but it's really, I'm really pleased we ended up doing that. It's a book I pick up and read passages from. It's a book I enjoy. That and Unknown Pleasures, but I'm not going to say that to you. but it is quite interesting. I always, every time I look at it, I always think, I wonder what it would have been like if we just bound those handwritten chapters in the book. And part of me thinks, I wonder whether that would have been more special. We will try and do that one day. But yeah,
it's amazing, Andy Pollock, how he was a man. He had, I don't know if it's good timing, but the way he was so huge and then he just disappeared. He was like Kaiser Soze, where he just disappeared. And then he reappears. And he writes this amazing book, and then he just goes again. Like it's amazing that we managed to get him because he could have, if he just died and he hadn't written that book, all that stuff would just have gone.
But I think that was Andy. You don't get to pull out. You don't get to do some of those ascents by not having an ability to knuckle down and focus. I think part of his coming and going was to do with his mental health issues and the drinking. And the fags, and I think he just had really dark times. But then he would come back and he needed that sort of attention. The pink tights was all about look at me. But it was worth looking at him because it was incredible.
I find that a lot recently. I think I was joking when I came here that everyone I've been interacting with recently, they all seem to have mental health issues. And I think one thing, if you're a creative person, you have to realise that is one aspect of why you are creative, is you are so sensitive to everything, and that's the burden. Is you're going to be a fucking screw up, manic depressive, because you're like, I always think about Superman. I think where Superman could hear every single person speaking at once. I think you do have that. If you're a bricklayer, you're probably not like that. You probably have better mental health because all you see is the bricks.
From the driving rain.
Yeah, but I think maybe if you're a creative person, you have to try and think more like a bricklayer and just turn it on and off, turn on your sensitivity every now and again, like, you know.
Well, it's quite. We were having a laugh in the office because obviously our intern is closely related to you, and so you have this social media persona where you're making a lot of comments, and you know, some of them are interesting, some of them are less interesting, and some of them are quite edgy, and you're drawing a lot of attraction, and you would think you're very thick-skinned, and then we're talking to your son and he's saying no, quite the opposite. And then I was relating when you showed me the first bunch of chapters on the fiction book you're writing, Bear Pit, and you asked me to comment, and my first thought was, well, your writing is so superb, and I'm, you know, although I'm a publisher, I don't feel as though I'm a literary critic, and you know, now I'm a bit unsure of how to give constructive feedback, or you know, feedback to somebody. So I just said the first thing that came off the top of my head, and then I think hindsight, you were quite upset about it.
No, you said there was so much swearing or something. There's too many fucks or something.
That might have been somebody else. No, I said it was too northern. I probably said.
Oh no, too northern. Yeah.
But it is, you know, it is.
But I think that's why it's really important to, like, when I was at this film festival the other day, we were I was staying in one hotel and everybody else in another hotel, and we'd just been somewhere, and then we're supposed to be meeting to go somewhere else, and then they just said the message like, "Oh, sorry, we've gone without you." And for a second had this thing like, "Oh, they've gone without me because I just got to spend the whole time talking and like dominate all the conversations, and they just want to be free of me." And then you just have to grab that part of you and just say like squeeze it and like just get a grip. So because it's that sort of, it's that sensitive part of you, and I think maybe some of that being controversial or being a what's the word, a contrarian, is trying to make yourself thicker skinned, if you know what I mean. But I don't know if it actually works. Like maybe it's like the drinking more poison to make yourself, you know. But
people do. I mean, we. If you publish or you do anything, you stick your head above the parapet and you'll get criticism. And,
yeah.
You know, we tend to you know. I mean, we had some, you know, awful criticism, 2 awful bits of criticism about Andy Pollock's book recently, which I did find quite upsetting, because you know, but you just got to sort of forget about it.
Yeah,
it's like, Jesus, Andy's dead. Just, you know, why are you dragging stuff up that you do, you know. So Andy, you know, because of his mental health, you know, often thought his book hadn't done as well as it should have done.
Yeah.
You know, but the bottom line is, what was going to make it a successful book? The book is beautiful. It's sold quite well. Nobody's made any money out of it. Andy made a bit of money. We're probably close to breaking even. The editor did all the work for nothing.
Yeah.
The photographers donated all the work to nothing. And then, you know, you get some idiot in the climbing scene who I won't name sort of saying, "Oh, Vertebrate really ripped Andy off," and it's like, you know, why would you say that?
Well, I always tell people, remember that To Kill a Mockingbird has like 1-star reviews on Amazon.
Yeah.
So I think that, I think of this thing that for, like 1% of people hate you whatever you do, and 1% love you whatever you do. So you just got the other 98% to fight for. But
I think the important thing I learned was you write the enraged email back to them, and then put it in your drafts, and then go climbing or go for a run and then delete it, and then the world is.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when we were a graphic design company losing a huge contract, and I did take it personally because it was like a mate from the climbing scene, and we lost the work to somebody, and that was that. And I just went climbing on the way home and did some boulder problem, and I thought, it really doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah. I think it's that ability to overcome those things. Like, I think you can take it personally. You can spend 24 hours like going, I'm not going to do this ever again. I'm wasting my life. But as long as you always just come back onto an even keel and then you keep on going, that's all that matters. Yeah. Where some people, they are so the physical, almost physical impact of that criticism, they can't face it ever again. You know, so they'll run off the stage, you know, when they're like, 10, because these people laughed at them when they were on a pantomime or something, and they'll never go back on again. So it's that ability just to keep on. Maybe it's like you have like an alpinist's mentality of just, having a very short-term memory and just keep on going. And I have this thing that before every great leap, there's a hurdle, and it's that ability to just think about that, because you often see people where they kind of fold. They spent like 30 years trying to be a filmmaker or a writer or something they're actually really, really good at. And as they're doing it, they're getting better and better and better. But they don't see they're actually getting better. And they see that they're getting less success, people take them for granted. And it's that moment, I think, when they just stop doing it and they get a normal job or whatever. That was a time when there was probably something great was going to happen, because they're sort of so beaten up and, like they're much more humble, I think. I think the more humble you become, when you're young, we probably know people who were like young and super talented, and they're so big-headed, and they don't really appreciate their talent. But it's only when they're later on and they're all beaten up and feel over the hill that they start grabbing hold of the talent, because it's kind of all they realise what they had just before it slips away. Maybe if that makes any sense. I think it's
knowing, and it comes back to this mental health thing. It's knowing what success is. And it's I think it's knowing when you've done a good job, and not trying to think you're writing the best book the world's ever going to see, or it's going to be a multi-million-pound bestseller. It's if you're writing a book for the climbing scene, it's just trying to think what you're trying to do. Our motto is like inspiring adventure. We just want people to share the kind of things that I had when I got into climbing, and meeting famous climbers and going climbing with people and just discovering all these amazing places. And it's like for us with publishing, it's knowing it's knowing that we're successful. And successful, because if success is a number, there'll always be another number. It's like I do a lot of running, and there'll always be somebody faster. So it's just knowing you've just gone out and had a good run. And you've raced really well, and you're the 12th person in your age category or whatever. and just accepting that's brilliant.
And it is a very long race, writing, isn't it? Because I think in the past they said you need about 10 books in print to make a living out of it. And I think now there's just so much media out there. Like most people are going to watch YouTube rather than read a book, and people listen to lots of podcasts, and you even like on Twitter and social media. If you had a Twitter account like 10 years ago, there might only been you and a few other people, and then slowly there's just this like din of stuff. The chance of someone watching a whole hour-long video on YouTube of Adam Ondra, they're probably going to be going off and doing something else, or on their phone, or doing so literature. But I guess that's why it's interesting you've gone into doing the audio books, because people sit in it's very hard to do anything when driving a car, so maybe that's the future.
Audio book. Well, I like audio books because I'm in the car a bit. But the interesting thing with audiobooks is I have a bit of a down on a lot of our books, because I tend to be the commissioning person. So I tend to read people's really rough, over long drafts of books, and then I make a decision whether we can publish them or not. So generally, that'll be the worst version of the book. That'll be, 100,000 words too long and really badly written in places, and then I'll commission it, and then I won't necessarily look at the book again, and then it goes through an editing process, and it gets better and better and better in theory. We might make worse. And then I won't tend to read the book again. Sometimes I will pick up a book when it comes off the printers, and I will read it, but I'll tend not to read it again. But then with audiobooks, I'm able to sort of plug one into the car and listen to it, and I'm, arrogance aside, some of our books are awesome. And I think I need to. I'm just doing Mick Fowler's No Easy Way at the moment, and I'm just laughing. I'm just driving along, laughing my head off at his self-deprecating style, and what he's got to say about other climbers and things like that.
Who reads the books?
Mostly a voice actor. They're just so they don't say So we have 2 or 3 people that we use that are quite reliable. We've only got about 20 audiobooks out. Nick Bullock did did his himself.
Yeah.
It takes about 3 times longer.
Yeah.
Because ironically, climbers, even Nick Bullock's not as good at talking as he thinks he is. But yeah, so mostly we use an actor.
Yeah. Do you have to get like a northern, like a Nick Bullock type?
Yeah, we got like for Sandy Allen's, we had to find a Scot.
Yeah.
But the first Scot we found was too, because Sandy's quite down to earth.
Yeah.
And the first, we had this Scot, but he was over it. You know, it's like, we're going up the North Face. It's going to be really hard. In a Scottish
like a
accent. Yeah, like complete Scottish thespian. And of course, like Sandy's not like that at all. So then we had to find we said you're too Scottish. So yeah, so we have to find people that can do accents and one thing and another. And then of course it doesn't sound like, so when the author hears it, they hate it. It doesn't sound like them.
Yeah.
And of course, Chris Bonington might make an appearance, and the default is to have Chris Bonington as a really upper class accent, and that doesn't work at all. So yeah, we have all sorts of problems, and then we have pronunciation problems.
Yeah.
So I was listening to the Jerry Moffat's Revelations, and I was trying to work out who this guy Bashar was.
Yeah.
I met this great climber Bashar in America, and it was only when they were talking about the Bashar ladder that it clicked. It was John Backer. But then I just find that amusing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was working. Andy Cave was climbing with Simon Nadin.
Yeah.
All this kind of stuff. So that's kind of funny. It just shows how unprofessional we are.
You get some really good. Some really broad, someone from Barnsley, like, it was really good. Yeah. You get it, yeah. But I think one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to if you're going to write climbing books is that Alan Partridge one. What's it called? Where he's basically going walking. It's not called Stallion Heart. It's something like that. But it's one of the but Steve Coogan does is narrating it. But it really captures that like really bad writing so well. I think it's one of the best books on badly written. Where there's bits. Was
it you that sent me the clip? From that where he's talking about
the graphic a logo. But it's just because people often just over describe things. So so I have this thing about people say the cold white snow was falling from the sky, and you're like, well, I know it's white, I know it's cold, I know it falls from the sky.
One place for it to fall.
Yeah, we'll just say it's snowing, and but people have this thing they really over describe everything. So what do you think? You're probably the number one person to, if someone's out there who wants to write a book or write something, what are the big mistakes that people make when they're submitting books to you?
God, the classic submission is to tell us all of other books are rubbish and this one isn't. That's the classic. You'd be surprised how much we get that. Yeah. And it's like, right.
Yeah. Straight in the bin.
Short of you being J.K. Rowling, they tend to go in the bin. In terms of submissions, I mean, if I'm honest, quite a lot of our books are commissioned. Or the people we've known, but the raw stuff, so it's stuff we're looking for. I mean, it might sound we have been trying to publish some more books by women. We're looking for people that can write. Might sound silly. We've had a lot of climbing adventures, and I'm not sure I can go across the Traverse of the Gods and up the White Spider anymore. I'm done with that chapter. So we've had a lot of that. So yeah, we're looking for just maybe different ways of writing about that story.
Yeah.
Different one to say. I mean, the mistakes are to whom it may concern.
Yeah.
Just unsorted chapters, just dumped on our in tray.
Yeah.
We like to, and we are commercial. We like to hear about what you're going to do to promote the book.
Yeah.
And not tell us all your mates think it's brilliant.
Yeah. I think maybe that's the thing that most people don't understand is you need to almost have all that in place already to promote your own book, don't you? The days of where Random House would take this unknown and, everyone would buy the book those days have gone, really, haven't they?
Yeah, the sales aren't there. I mean, the other thing we get quite a lot of, come June, July, we get quite a lot of I Climbed Everest a month ago submissions.
Right.
We get 2 or 3 of them every summer.
Yeah.
So they get back from their trip.
Let's do like an annual, like a
we should do. So we've done 3 already now this year. So we get quite a lot of those. They're a waste of time. And then we get, people that, walk to the base camp of Everest. We get maybe 5 Everest submissions a year at least. Yeah. So I guess the stuff I like is people that, I'm not saying you have to go read Tillman, but people that have sort of read something like Tillman and can write something a bit like that, but different.
Yeah.
I quite like those, and
like an interesting story, well told. Not
yeah.
Often there's one of those bits is missing, I guess.
Yeah, and people are brutally honest. I mean, if you've got an angle, if you've got something to say,
yeah,
that's not controversial, but honest.
Yeah.
I quite like that. As we know, I like your writing. Yours is, that's that kind of stuff. If anybody, I guess my favourite book is Unknown Pleasures, because you don't need a long attention span for
read on the toilet.
Really short chapters. Yeah. There's lots of them, and you can just take it or leave it. I kind of like that kind of stuff. Anybody that can write like that.
Yeah, because time is so precious these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
To sit and get to the end of a whole book. I noticed on Kindle, I seem to have like 5 or 6 books all going at the same time on Kindle.
Yeah, I think, and we're trying to do a little bit about wildlife and put a bit of that into some books.
Yeah, because you're trying to help with the getting rid of all the shooting birds kind of kind of thing. Do you get any sort of pushback with that, or is that just a positive?
No, not really, but I don't think we've been noticed.
Yeah,
a tiny bit, but I don't think we've been noticed. I think we're way off the radar.
Yeah, I always think that. I think there's basically these like 3. You have like third wave feminism. I think there's kind of first, second, third environmentalism.
Yeah,
and I think it was like David Icke was saying that when Prince Charles was talking about organic food, and this kind of stuff, people thought he was crazy, and everyone made jokes about him, like talking to the plants. And Greenpeace was this, totally radical thing where, 20 years later, it's like mainstream kind of stuff. So I guess a lot of these things that seem like not very important, like about the uplands and rewilding and all this kind of stuff, I guess in 10 years they'll probably be front and centre, won't they, really?
We've got an author, Jon Barton, and he writes a bit of comedy, and he's writing about raptor persecution and rewilding in Scotland in his latest book, Skydance. But we've sent him out to write a new book, and it's going to be called Wild Winter. It won't be out for 18 months or so. And we're sending him out looking for wildlife, and he's sending draft chapters in. And I was shocked to learn. So he's going looking for mountain hares. I was shocked to learn that the population in mountain hares is 1% of what it was 20 or 30 years ago in Scotland. And
all those eagles have killed them all.
It's the eagles. It's definitely the eagles. That's what the landowners said. And just that level of nonsensical persecution.
Yeah.
I've always found. I mean, when I was a kid, I was brought up in a hunting and shooting community, and from a very early age, I found it abhorrent. And all my mates. I mean, I had a shotgun. We all had shotguns. We'd all go shooting. And I found it very abhorrent, from a very early age, and watching what was happening to the landscape, as the farming got more intensive, and watching the just no regard for wildlife from the shooting community and the hunting community.
Yeah.
Awful crimes being committed, and I think as we get a bit maturer as a publisher, it'd be good to publish in that area.
Yeah. I guess that's a good...
Because I'm sick of going across the traverse of the gods with a brace partridge.
I guess it's interesting though, isn't it, how you can... I guess it's like, an adventure publisher, but it's an adventure publishing as well, because you're moving it along. You're moving the literature along.
Yeah.
And the people I wonder if people will start trusting that it's a vertebrate book, rather than just who's on the author, just who the author is. Like, oh, this is by Vertebrate, this must be a good book.
We have. I'm conscious that people are getting bored of hearing me talk. We have, when we're commissioning a book or when we're doing a book, we have a number of people on our website, and they come and buy every single book we publish without fail, and we have it in our head during the commissioning process that is that the sort of book Hannah will buy? That
the 1% are gonna.
Yeah. And if it isn't, we probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So we definitely, there's probably 10 people. There's a guy Nigel, there's Hannah, there's Keith, and we know the names. And we just think about that, and we have that responsibility. And I guess it's what you're saying about that connection between famous climbers and not famous climbers and all the rest of it. It is a small community, and we are all friends.
Yeah.
And it is nice that they'll help you out.
Yeah.
Whether it's we got some support off the BMC to help with some publication stuff this year, and and I think Jerry Moffat was in the other day helping with some stuff. Yeah. We'll get photos sent over all the time.
It's a small village.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like to finish by just telling the story how you went from having a graphic design side of Vertebrate and the publishing side. When you told me the story about your one of your mentors who gave you this advice.
Oh God, yeah. So so we were graphic design, web design, and we were publishing books. And we made, all of our money was made from websites, and our turnover was everything from websites. And we were based on Salter Lane. And I had a mentor, very very experienced guy, an entrepreneur, used to work in management teams, and I was like, he was like, look, you've got to give up the websites and just focus on publishing. That's what you're good at. And he was saying, look, you're arguably the world's best publisher of mountaineering books, and you've just got to focus on that. And I was like, yeah, but all our turnover is on, we make all our money on websites. He says, yeah. He says, look, you're arguably the world's best publisher of mountaineering books. He says, you're probably the third best website producer on Salter Lane. and it was, so we just took the leap, and we just stopped doing websites and graphic design, and we just concentrated on publishing. And he was absolutely right, because there was people, you don't think, because you're so close to it, there's people as passionate as producing websites as we were to produce mountaineering literature.
Yeah.
So we just left them to do websites because they love it, and I hated it. And now we just publish books, and it's better and it's successful.
Yeah. Well, I guess thanks from all the outdoor readers out there for putting the effort. So.